This video is going to cover the topic of class expectations for our math class. I'm going to be doing a mixture of writing and typing, but you need to be writing this down in your journal. Tomorrow I'm going to ask to see your notes, and then we'll have a chance to discuss the notes. So whatever I write, I want you to write as well. If you want or need to write a little more than what I write, because I sometimes shorten things, feel free to add whatever you need to make sure it makes sense to you. Let's start by making sure our page is set up and ready to go. With the bookmark that we got in class, we're going to draw a line horizontally across the top of the page. Then, again with our bookmark, we're going to draw a line vertically on the left-hand side of our page. It should look something like this. Now we have a header space. At the top, up here, we're going to write the date and the topic, and we'll do this every time. So here I have the date, and our topic is class expectations, so that's what I wrote at the top. Still in our top header section, we're going to reserve a piece of this for what we call the essential question. The essential question is what guides our learning. It's what we plan to learn or gain from the work. So today our essential question is, what are the class expectations for Miss White's class? Take a minute and make sure you have that recorded on the top before you move on. And remember at any time to stop and pause the video to give yourself time to take notes. I'm going to break this down into parts, and you'll see that sometimes I have to turn the page on my screen. As long as you have room on the right-hand side of your page, you can keep using it. You might be able to get everything on one page. If you do run out of room, turn the page and use the right-hand side of the next set of pages. We're always going to leave the left-hand side open for classwork. So go ahead and let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about is what it looks like when we enter the classroom. One thing to know is when we enter the classroom, we need to wait for the previous class to leave. We don't just rush into the room. So we wait until you have the go-ahead or the invite from me to enter the class. When you enter the room, it is your job to go directly to your seat, your assigned seat. If you need to sharpen your pencil or grab materials, do those things quickly and quietly so you can be back in your seat by the time the bell rings. The other thing you'll need to think about as you walk in the room is getting ready to start the warm-up that I call a do now. The do now will be on the board every day as you enter, and it connects with what we are learning or have been learning, and it's your job to come in and start that do now independently and do it as best as you are able to do before the class gets started together. So these 4 things are the little items that you'll want to keep track of as you enter our room each day in order to start successfully each day. The next piece we're going to talk about is what it looks like when we're in the room and what it looks like during instruction. I'm going to turn my page. You probably still have plenty of room on your paper, so go ahead and keep writing it on that page as much as you're able. You might notice that as I turn my page, I rewrote my lines on the side, but I didn't redo the essential question at the top, and that's okay. We don't have to rewrite it for each page of the same video. So the next piece we're talking about is during instruction. But there are 2 types of instruction. The first is what I call direct instruction. Direct instruction is where I'm giving information and kind of doing a lot of talking. During direct instruction, your job is to stay on task and focused. You'll also need to take notes when it's necessary or when I ask you to. It's also important that you are listening respectfully to either myself or to your classmates who are sharing. And of course, if you have an idea that you would like to share, raise your hand and share your ideas with us. In addition to direct instruction, there's also independent work time that goes on as a type of instruction as well. During independent work time, you're either working by yourself, with a partner, or in a group to complete a task. Once again, the biggest expectation, of course, is still that you are focused on math. Just like if we're doing direct instruction, during independent work time, you're also remaining focused and on task. If you are collaborating with others in a pair or a group, it is expected that you are having math conversations and using respectful language, as well as using a respectful voice level so as not to distract others who are also working. One thing you'll hear me say when we're talking about voice level is I'll use numbers, such as a number 1 voice level if you're talking in a whisper to the person next to you, or maybe a level 2 voice level if you're talking in a group, but we'll never use our outdoor voices as if we're on the playground or recess in our classroom. Another expectation that we want to cover is hall passes. Students often ask how you can get permission to use the restroom or get water, and that's a very valid and great question. Everyone deserves a chance to take care of those things. So we're going to talk for just a minute about hall passes. The first thing to know is that ideally here at Selwood, we ask students to use the restroom and fill water bottles in between classes. And that might seem really hard as you're learning your way around, but it gets easier to get around the school as the weeks go by, and you'll find yourself with plenty of time to take care of most of those things. However, I realize that doesn't always work, or things happen and you need to use the restroom or get up for something in the middle of class. So in our class, each student is given 3 bathroom or hall tickets per quarter. They look a little like raffle tickets. If you choose to use one of your tickets, know that we do have a policy at Selwood that students are not to use the restroom or hall passes in the first or last 10 minutes of class for various reasons. So we follow that policy in our class. Additionally, when we're having direct instruction, that is when I'm talking or people are sharing ideas, I'm going to ask you to wait to use the hall pass. I don't want you to miss information or directions for activities that we might be doing in class. So when the time is right, and if you decide you need to use a pass, you'll bring your ticket with your name on it, drop it in the cup by the door, sign out on the sign out sheet that we have, and take a hall pass and wear it around your neck. When you come back in, you sign in and return the hall pass. And there are instructions for this in our classroom as well. But if you're hearing something at all during this video or any other video, notice that we have this empty space here. This is where you can write down questions. So if you're ever listening to instructions on the video and something doesn't make sense, or you want to remember to ask me about something tomorrow in class, go ahead and jot that down. And that's what we'll look at when we want to go over questions in class. There's just one more thing I want to share with you, and that's what it looks like when you leave the room. I have classes that come in one after another in the room, and we want to make sure that it's ready for all students to learn. So at the end of class, I'm going to ask you to do a couple things to make sure it goes smoothly. The first thing is a huge pet peeve of mine, something that really bothers me and something that I really pay careful attention to, and that is that I want you to wait until I signal that it's time to pack up. I don't appreciate when students start packing up early, especially if other students are still sharing ideas. We want to respect each other and each other's time and wait to pack up until we're all done. You'll also want to check your space, the space around you, for any materials or trash that you have to take care of. Maybe return something to the shelf or put it in the recycle, just so the space is clear for the next student. And lastly, I ask that you push in your chair politely so that the space is clear for people to walk in and out of the classroom. And if you're the last class of the day, you'll put the chair up on the top of the desk. So those are some things to think about at the end of class each day. And of course, as you're actually leaving, I'll ask you to calmly walk out. There's no need to push your way out of the door. In fact, if you do that, I'll usually ask you to come back and try again, which means you'll end up being even later than you wanted when you were rushing out. So just take your time and walk out calmly. Should you have any trouble remembering any of these expectations, I will provide reminders. And we'll have a chance to talk about this in class tomorrow as well. So remember that this video was set to show you the expectations of our class. The essential question was, what are the expectations for our classroom? If you have any questions about any of these, you can go back and rewatch it, or write any questions you might have in the margins and be ready to talk about it tomorrow.